What's up, y'all? We are less than 24 hours from UFC 257 McGregor vs. Poirier 2. I'm so hyped for this card that I had to go and make an official prediction video for it. So this is the Cap Reports UFC 257 prediction video. In the co-main event, we have number 6 ranked Dan Hooker versus Michael Chandler. Chandler's making his debut in the UFC, coming from Bellator. In his last fight, he knocked out former UFC lightweight champion Benson Henderson in the first round. Hooker is coming off a loss in an absolute war to Dustin Poirier. Hooker currently sits as a minus 125 favorite for the fight, and I would agree with that for the most part, although I would say that I think that it should be a little bit higher in Hooker's favor. Hooker was not at all the opponent that I thought Chandler would make his debut against. Hooker's been saying this all week, and I agree with him that just from a matchup perspective, it doesn't seem like the best choice for Chandler. You know, I think there are a lot of other guys that he could have fought in the division that he would have made a bigger impact coming into the division with. Though it sounds like guys above Hooker didn't want to take the fight, so that's probably part of it. But I just think that Hooker is more suited to counter Chandler's wrestling threat than a lot of the other fighters in the division. So I think it's important to mention that Michael Chandler, first as a basis, he is a former multi-time Bellator lightweight champion and a former, I believe, Division I All-American wrestler. He has a great basis in wrestling, and he also has a lot of power in his punches, and he's a very explosive puncher as well. He doesn't do great on combinations. It's a lot of like smaller 1-2 and just power. But that's just to give a basis of Michael Chandler and his fighting style a bit and what he has to bring to the table. Dan Hooker's basis is in kickboxing. He's a guy who fights out of city kickboxing, and I think that will be a big thing, as there are three reasons I think that he can be a good foil and act as a counter to Chandler's style, and one of the big things being his feint game. As I said, from city kickboxing, a lot of them, like Israel Adesanya as well, Volkanovski, they use feints, you know, give different looks, see how their opponents react to it, download that data, and then it allows them to set traps for their opponent to step into. And so I think that is a big thing that could be in play late in the second round, even into the third round, where once you've given a lot of different looks, you've thrown a lot out there, you can lay a trap for someone like Chandler where, I don't know, you feint something to bait him into shooting and you catch him with the knee, right? I don't know for sure if it will happen, but I think it's really plausible just based off the feint game. I think another thing is Hooker's chin. His chin is way too solid, man. I mean, if you look at the Poirier fight, he took shot after shot after shot, and he just kept moving forward like a zombie. So I think that he should be able to take Chandler's power. I mean, I guess it's hard to say because we haven't seen Chandler in the division, and how it compares to the rest of the guys. I mean, I know a lot of people were making jokes about how he would suddenly look a lot different when he came in the UFC, but his physique hasn't changed at all. You know, they're implying like that he was on PEDs or steroids or whatnot, and it doesn't seem to be the case. So if it is just natural power, I'm really interested to see how it plays out and how Hooker can take his shots, but I think he should be able to take his shots. And then finally, Hooker has a 80, I think it's 79 technically, 79% takedown defense rate. So it's hard to get him to the ground either way, and that's another, I think, trait of the city kickboxing guys. But that being said, it might be hard for Chandler to even get the fight to the ground. And even if it goes to the ground, I think that Hooker he's good enough skilled on the ground that he can be competitive there, and it's not something that Chandler has to instantly look to have a massive advantage, right? That even if he goes there, Hooker will be competitive. It's funny because I've talked to one of my friends about this fight a couple times, and he's always mentioning, wow, you don't got faith in Chandler. And it's really not that I don't have faith in Chandler, it's just I think that Hooker really is just one of the worst matchups that Chandler could have gotten for his debut. With that being said, I think it's kind of obvious who I'm picking for this fight. I'm going to go with Hooker by a second round TKO. And kind of as I mentioned earlier, I really could see a situation playing out where Hooker kind of throws a feint and baits Chandler into level changing, shooting for a takedown, and that's where he catches him, you know, with a knee or an uppercut or something. Now we move on to the main event. Number 2 ranked Dustin Poirier versus number 4 ranked Conor McGregor in a rematch from UFC 178 over 6 years ago, which took place at featherweight, where Conor McGregor got a first round finish TKO roughly 90 seconds in of Dustin Poirier. This time around, I think the fight is whole different dynamic. Both these guys are very different fighters from the first time around. I think that Conor being a minus 310, 315 favorite is way too high. I think the line opened at the right spot, like minus 150, minus 180. I get him being the favorite, and I kind of agree with it just because of how dangerous he is so early, and the fact that Dustin's fought 2 snipers in his entire career, and he's lost to both of them, and one of them being Conor McGregor. And both of them were first round, like 90-second TKOs within the first 2 minutes. So there is, reason for concern for Poirier. I think that this fight really will go off of the game plans. The first thing we need to go over is the fact that in the first fight, you could tell there was a very big mental, game to it. McGregor was all in Poirier's head, and it showed up in the fight. Poirier fought emotional. He's even acknowledged it, and I don't think that's going to happen again. He seems to have been able to remove himself from that at this point in his career. When they did the press conference with like the 4 of them, Hooker, Chandler, Poirier, and McGregor, I was a little worried by like some of the faces and the body language of Poirier, even though I'm not, no armchair psychologist or nothing. It was a little concerning, but then seeing him at the ceremonial weigh-in, he seemed a lot more into it. Just the energy was there, and I don't know, he didn't seem off. So I'm not too worried about him. Like at first I was, but he kind of, it doesn't seem like it's going to actually be an issue. Both fighters are coming off similar streaks. Poirier coming off of a 5-round unanimous decision victory over Dan Hooker, and Conor coming off of a first-round finish of Donald Cerrone, although it was at 170 pounds. And then before that, both had lost to Khabib by submission. Poirier's been the much more active fighter in recent history as opposed to Conor, but so it's a little harder to kind of judge what's going to happen here, because we haven't seen Conor since 2018 at lightweight. So there's a lot of question marks and unknowns, really. That being said, I think both fighters have paths to victory in this. For McGregor, it's going to be, pressuring early. He almost always wins the first round of fights. So, doing what he normally does, get pressure. If he can get Poirier to brawl with him, that works hugely in his favor, particularly early in the fight. Because if Poirier tries to go shot for shot with him, he's going to land a big left. You know what I mean? He can counter with a left hook. That's just gonna. It's hard to say if Poirier could handle that in the first round. Even in the second round, I think favors Conor. As long as he's able to, control the octagon, kind of push Poirier back into the cage a little bit, ultimately setting up that left straight. And as I said, if you can get him to brawl with him as well, he can probably catch him with a left hook counter as well. I think if this goes into the championship rounds, it doesn't look as good for McGregor, just because of historically he's gassed into those rounds. He's saying that his cardio is a lot better now and that he wants to show that, and it's just really hard to say. He looks in somewhat better shape than he did in the Khabib fight, but it's one of those things we got to see him go there, right? Like, there's still questions about the cardio, and no doubt about it, Poirier has better cardio than him. He almost gets better into the late rounds. So for McGregor, the earlier finish, probably the better. I think there's a solid chance he could win a decision if it goes there, but he is at much more risk into the later rounds. But I think he has a huge advantage in the early rounds. I mean, yeah. All he's got to do is set up that left hand, because that's what his game revolves around. For Poirier, it's a bit of the opposite, right? He's got to keep his distance early. He says that he wants to war, but he cannot afford to brawl early. He's got to keep his distance. He's one of the only guys who's ever used leg kicks against Conor, so he's going to want to just keep hitting those leg kicks, beat up that lead leg. Don't let Conor be able to rely on that, right? He likes to just put his full body weight on that as he lands the left, and that's part of what makes his left so dangerous. So if you're able to take that away from him early, you take a lot. He likes to take a wide stance too, so there's an opening generally for that leg kick, right? And so you want to keep distance somewhat. You land when you can, get in, get out. Don't focus on the combinations too much, because as I said with the Conor part, if he tries to land too many combinations, he's gonna get countered probably. When it gets to the later rounds, assuming that Conor is gassed, he can definitely start hitting those combos, and there's a better chance. There's a lot less of a chance for him to get dropped, so he can afford to do that, right? If Conor's cardio is as bad as we think, I know his camp, Poirier's camp has been saying that they think that it's suspect, that I could see maybe him forcing a level change from Conor or something like that and catching him in a Darce choke maybe. I think it's probably maybe a little more likely that he gets the TKO in, say, like the 4th, maybe 5th round. And I think similar to McGregor, he can win a decision as well. With that being said, my official prediction is Poirier by TKO in round 4. I initially had said in the past that I would think that maybe like a as I said previously, a Darce choke in like round 4 with a force level change, because Conor can be a little panicky when he gets into the deep end. But I think that a TKO is probably more likely. As I said, I really do think this can go either way, but when it comes down to making a pick, I'm gonna go with Poirier. He's fought more recently. His chin's a lot better at 155. I think that the 155 class fits him a lot better. It fits Conor better too, but I think that the ceiling for him moved up a lot more than it moved up for Conor when they both moved up to 155. So yeah, those are my predictions. What do y'all think of my predictions? What are your predictions? If you enjoyed the video and you want to see more content, go ahead and leave a like and subscribe to the Cap Report.